Mwiriwe mwiriwe nanone ndaje kubaganiriza gatoya, ntabwo ndi butinde no kubaganiriza ku ejo twagiye kwibuka hirya gato ya Toronto yitwa Hamilton, nkuko mu minsi ishize twagiye kwibuka ahitwa London ya Ontario, n'ahandi rero Hamilton ni hirya gato ya Toronto. Twagiye gufata mu mugongo abavandimwe bacu bacitse ku icumu ya genocide yakorewe Abatutsi. Bateguye kwibuka mu buhamya bukomeye cyane ko bavandimwe bari bahari. Nkuko bisanzwe rero abanyarwanda aho bateranira hose baba bavuga amateka yabo, baba bavuga inzira ndende y'ubwicanyi abaduhigaga bashaka kutumaraho kuri iyi si, ariko nabapfira gushira. Ni mu buryo rero twagiye gufata ku mugongo abavandimwe bacu. Buri gihe ni bya bintu njya mvuga, buri gihe warokotse genocide yakorewe Abatutsi abamo abantu babiri, burya ari umwe utanga ubuhamya. Ibyo nkunda kwivuga buri gihe, ari na wa wundi uri mu mirimo isanzwe wacitse ku icumu ya genocide yakorewe Abatutsi. Burya harimo abantu babiri, hari umubona utanga ubuhamya bw'akababaro cyane karemereye, ari na wa wundi noneho wongeye kumubona ari mu mirimo isanzwe, ari mu muryango we, ari mu mukono w'abashakanye, ari responsable mu kazi, umubona ubuzima busanzwe aseka nk'abandi, yaganya nk'abandi, atebye nk'abandi. Ariko igihe cyo gutanga ubuhamya cyaza agatanga ubuhamya koko bukora abantu ku mutima. Nabo bantu babiri tuvuga buri gihe, ni nayo mpamvu tuvuga ngo twibuke twiyubaka. Ni muri uwo mujyo rero tugomba kwibuka twiyubaka, kugira ngo tunabwire mu by'ukuri isi amateka yacu. Ntabwo ari ko bagomba kutwumva, si ngombwa, ariko ni ukuvuga amateka y'ibyatubayeho. Nta n'uwo dutere impuhwe cyangwa imbabazi, oya. Nta n'uwarokotse genocide yakorewe Abatutsi yari azi ko azageraho, azarokoka akageraho ahagarara imbere y'abantu cyangwa imbere y'imbaga ku isi avuga ibyamubayeho. Abahanga bavuga ko n'ubundi ubwabyo bivura umuntu, kugira ngo ibiri ku mutima wawe bisohore kandi ubigire abandi. Bikaba nanone n'uburyo kwigisha abana batukomokaho, indi generation yavutse nyuma ya genocide, bumva mu by'ukuri aya mateka uko yararemereye. Ntabwo ari ukubiba urwango, ntabwo ari oya, ni kuvuga amateka kandi ya nyayo y'ukuri. Uwo bibabaza n'akazi ke, kuko n'ubundi ntabwo yari azi ko tuzarokoka kugira ngo tuze tuba abahamya b'ukuri. Icyo ni kimwe. Ikindi nongeye mbwira abanyarwanda batuye muri iki gihe cya Canada, umuryango uhagarariye abanyarwanda Kwibuka Canada niyo yonyine rukumbi ifite ubwo burenganzira bwo guserukira abacitse ku icumu mu buryo bw'amategeko muri iki gihugu. Ntabwo ari utwa dutsiko mwabonye tw'ibisambo twitwa igicumbi, ibisambo n'intagondwa. Mu by'ukuri intagondwa bivanye n'ubusambo, cyangwa se abacanshuro bashaka gucuruza inkuru kubw'inda yabo, kubw'inshuro bashaka guca. So abahagarariye abanyarwanda muri bwo mategeko ni Kwibuka Canada. Nabo bahira mu mashyirahamwe atandukanye hirya no hino mu gihugu. Ushize nibyo natangiye, twari London, ejo twari Hamilton, ejo bundi muri UK tuzaba na Toronto. Muri make ibyo ngibyo ntabwo ndi batindire. Twari dufite abashyitsi bakomeye cyane b'abanyamahanga b'inshuti zacu. Koko hari umugabo najyaga nkurikira cyane kuri social media, inkuru zica kuri WhatsApp, ukuntu avuga u Rwanda, ukuntu avuga abacitse ku icumu, ukuntu avuga Perezida wa Repubulika, ukuntu avuga abanyarwanda, ukuntu bavuye hasi mu ndiba nta gihugu na kimwe kuri isi cyagezeho u Rwanda rwageze, none naho rugeze uyu munsi. Ejo niko namubonye, nawe yaje muraza kumubona mu kiganiro. Ikiganiro ni kirekire, muze kwihangana mu gihe umwanya murebe kuko ikiganiro cy'uwo mugabo afite ubwenegihugu bw'abayahudi n'abanyamerika, ni umuprofeseri witwa Khan, niba izina rye bivuze neza. Asanga aza no mu Rwanda azanye abanyeshuri yigisha. N'ejo bundi yatubwiye ko muri ukwezi kwa gatandatu azaza abanyeshuri barenga ijana niba na 20 niba na 40, ntabwo ndibuka neza imibare, ariko avuga mbese ibyo yigisha abana b'abanyamerika ni nako kubageza aho ibintu byabereye, kugira ngo n'aya mateka biga banayasobanukirwe kurushaho. Namushimye cyane, kandi n'abanyarwanda bakoze kumushimira ubwitange nk'ubwo ngubwo. Ni ukuvuga ngo iyo dutanga ubuhamya tubwira ibyatubayeho, tubwira isi ibyatubayeho, hari abatwumva, hari abo turi kumwe inkuru zacu bazumva kuko nk'abantu nk'umuntu ufite ubumuntu, mu gihe dufite bamwe Abanyarwanda bafite umutima w'inyamaswa. Ntabwo natinya kwivuga rwose. So muri make ni ibyo ngibyo. Rero nongeye ntumira abantu batuye mu mujyi wa Toronto kuzitabira imihango yo kwibuka jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi izabera Toronto. Turacyari kumwe rero Banyarwanda, ngaho nguko murakagira Imana, umunsi mwiza.
I didn't know my parents tried to shelter me and everyone else about that, so I didn't know much about what was going on. My parents did their best, but so despite the growing tension, I was still able to enjoy my childhood, completely unaware of the full extent of what was unfolding around us. So in the eyes of a 10-year-old girl, my life, my home, my neighborhood seemed safe. I felt loved and safe, and people seemed to get along. So in my eyes, my life looked perfect until it wasn't. On April 6, 1994, the day that started as a normal as other days, with me playing with my siblings and my friends on a beautiful sunny day in Rwanda, ended by the prison airplane crash that night, and my life was changed forever. I vividly remember my mother's face when she heard the announcement on the radio that the prison was killed in the airplane. To my mother, who had always showed us that she was strong, that moment she looked weak and hopeless, and her eyes were full of fear as she said, "We're going to die. They're going to kill us all." I didn't understand what she meant. I thought, why would they kill us? We didn't do it. I didn't ask her. I keep wondering. But genocide was well planned, and there were some rumors and threats that our parents heard, so they knew that something bad was about to happen. So right after the airplane crash, very loud sound of gunfires started and kept on going all night. The next morning, it got worse. My mother was a social worker at the Andera Psychiatric Hospital. She went to work that morning to check on her patients. So she can reassure them. She told us that her patient needed her, that she needed to check on them and let them know and explain things to them. Otherwise, they would be confused and scared. So I thought, if my mom is going to work, everything will be okay. 2 hours later, she came back home, and she looked even sadder than before. She sat on our front porch and talked to her neighbors about what she just saw and heard. As they observed her child, I was I was pretending to play around, but also listening to her conversation. She told our neighbors that there had been 3 attacks in the neighborhood that morning, and only Tutsis were being targeted. And it was getting worse. She said that people were going to the hospital to hide there. So I wondered, why the hospital? She later explained to us that in the past conflicts, the hospital and churches were a safe place. So then I said, I thought, oh, if the hospital is a safe place, then it will be okay. I thought it would be like a chance, it would give me a chance to be with my friends and my cousins, everyone there, and we'll stay in the hospital for a few days. In my thoughts, I thought that would be like a long sleepover. That excitement died so quickly when my mother said, she asked our neighbors jokingly, she said, I don't think I want to go because I feel like I will die in the refugee camp. I know if I leave my home, I will never come back. Then she asked my neighbor jokingly, she said, Wadamu, do you know if there will be tea in heaven? My neighbor laughed and she said, well, Glorious, you're so spoiled. But don't worry, there will be tea in heaven. You have everything you need in heaven. So I get so nervous and say, if my mother's asking about tea, this is serious. She loves her tea. So my mother's concern got me worried and scared. The sound of gunfire got louder and closer. Then we packed our bag and went to the hospital. For a couple of days, even though I was scared, it felt exciting because I had all my friends and relatives and all my uncles and aunts and my cousins were there. But things got harder. All men got organized. They organized themselves and tried to guard the hospital gates. I didn't see my dad and my big brother for a while because they were outside with other men protecting us. Life got harder. We had no food and we couldn't go outside to find it. Then they destroyed our water system. They wanted us to have no choice but to go outside so they can kill us. The Interahamwe militia from Dera will come to scare us by shooting the hospital gates and throwing some grenades in the window. But they would not come inside the hospital because they thought we were protected. And they didn't have enough support. I was always worried about my dad and my big brother after each small attack. But they would come to see us every time to check on us. On April 11th, this happened. You able to play the video? I had a video to show you what happened on April 11th, but we have some technical issues, so I'll explain what happened. On April 11th, for a brief moment, we have some hope. We hope that we're going to be saved because we heard big trucks full of Belgian soldiers who were coming to rescue all the Westerners. So when they came, everyone everybody got so excited. They said, we're going to be saved. We're fine. They're going to take us somewhere safe. So we started jumping on the beds and everyone was shouting that we'll be okay, we'll be okay. Till that excitement didn't last for a long time. I remember the gates getting closed and my mother came in and she said, you can stop jumping now because they're gone. They didn't come for us. And you're going to die. And she was right. After the soldiers left, attack got worse. We managed to stay for only six days. The radio RTLM announced that their psychiatric hospital was full of nyenzi, which means cockroaches. And they were trying to escape, pretending to be mental ill patients. So the broadcast called on all in Herahamwe from the neighboring areas and soldiers from Kanobe military camp to come and support the Nera militias and soldiers from over there so they can finish the job. On April 16th in the afternoon, we had the first big attack. The part of the hospital was completely destroyed by bombs. So many people were injured, including my mother, who got shot in her head, and many people died. That night was full of screams and pain. Parents crying for their children, children crying for their parents. People were desperate. Some were saying, they won. Let us go outside so they can kill us. The adults held a meeting that night and they decided we will be moving in a new hospital building at midnight. I thought it was a great idea. At midnight, they opened the gates. It was dark and this was my first time stepping outside the hospital since the day we entered. It was dark and I was terrified. I was worried that militias found out about our plans and they were waiting for us to get us out so they can kill us. But we all crossed the street and entered the new building safely. Phew! I remember thinking, they would never find us. I think actually maybe one of my siblings convinced me that these buildings were bulletproof too. So we found our rooms, our new rooms, and we slept that night. I was hopeful until the morning. The next morning on 17th, all families were trying to settle in and share whatever they had left to eat because children were hungry. They started cooking some porridge outside. Then we heard the first bomb that was followed by many. Then their militia got the support they needed to finish the job. The soldiers brought big guns and so many militia came to help them. They forced us out by using smoke bombs. They kept yelling, "Get out, we will not kill you." But they were lying. We put our hands and got out. They sat us on the grass under the trees. The soldiers asked in Herahamwe, the militia who knew us, because they were our neighbors, they asked them to make sure there was no Hutu who was among us. In Herahamwe did so and confirmed to the soldiers, these are all Tutsis. The soldiers started getting their guns ready and started taking their position. At that moment, one of my uncle, Rurango Francois, who had always said that he would never let anyone kill him with a machete, got up and ran. So soldiers shot him right from front of us. At that point, militias and soldiers all came closer and surrounded us, and they said they had to hurry up before we all decided to run. So we knew that we had no way out. Some adults came up with an idea. They whispered, let's lie down. Maybe it will be less painful. So we all lay down at the same time. The goodbyes were exchanged. Some parents say goodbyes to the children. Children did the same. We all say goodbyes. They said, bye, we will meet shortly in heaven. These goodbyes were stopped when the soldiers started shooting into us. I was waiting for my own bullet, but I didn't know how I would know when I died. So I thought if I could still hear the sound, that means that I was still alive. The whole time I was trying to protect my head because I was worried that I would die immediately if they touched my head. During that shooting, I felt a warm liquid on my cheek. Then I opened my eyes to find out it was my aunt's blood from the bullet in her head. So I had an idea of rolling my head in her blood. So if they see my head covered in blood, they would think that I was dead. The soldiers stopped shooting, and I heard them saying that they thought maybe everyone was dead. So I thought I must be alive. But then the soldiers said that they were not 100% sure if everyone is dead. They thought there might be people underneath who were still alive. So they asked the militia to use their machete and clubs and go through one more time, hitting each person to make sure no one came out alive. So then their army did so happily. That's when they hit me on my head with a club. I was confused and unconscious. But when I regained my consciousness, I heard them saying, "We're done here. They're all dead. Let's go before Imhotep get here." That night, around 1,000 people were killed in the hospital, including my father, my mother, 4 siblings, my grandma, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, so many cousins, my friends, and all my lovely neighbors. My mom was right. She didn't get to go back home. But I hope she went to a heavenly home and she found her tea. was paralyzed by fear. But when they left, I got up and went back to a hospital. One of the hospital buildings that was destroyed by bombs and was full of dead people. I thought it would be a great hiding place. I stayed in a dark hospital for 3 nights. It was the safest place for me to be because I could pretend to be dead like everyone else around me, and the killers will not be able to tell the difference. I was told that my house was destroyed and I didn't have a home anymore. But I found out that my sister was still alive. She was hidden by a family in our neighborhood. A lot of things happened in between. But we were still alive when RPF and Hotani stopped the killings, put an end to the genocide of the 100 days. I lived with different families. And then we were reunited with all my cousins who survived. My oldest cousin decided to repair my uncle's house, the only one that was not destroyed to the ground. And he got all the cousins to live in that house together. We raised ourselves. Life was hard, but we were grateful to have each other and have a second chance to life. We worked so hard at school. Some of us succeed in school, but others are still struggling with this trauma they have experienced. Even though we had overcome so much, the road to recovery is still long. Because when we think we're getting in a better place or things are getting better, our wounds get reopened again and again. After the genocide, thanks to our government, the Ndera Memorial Center was built. So every April, we will go to remember a loved one there. But I wasn't convinced that all our people were found. But being young at the time, I wasn't sure where to ask either. I just trusted that maybe all the remains. We moved to the center. But as I got older, I kept worrying about it. So in May 2018, I sent a message to a Ndera genocide survivor group, and I shared my testimony. I also told them some of my worries was that our people might not be where we thought they were in the memorial center. I told them that when I was lying in the hospital for 3 days, I heard the killers. I could hear their voices, and they were digging beside the hospital. And I thought that's where they were hiding our people. I told them that it came to my attention that that area was to be built on because the hospital was expanding. So I told them that something had to be done before it was too late. So they heard me and they took the matter in their hands and worked so hard to make sure that they found out the truth about where our loved ones were buried. They dug for a week and they finally found them. So that week of digging and gathering more information, 3 of the mass graves were identified in different locations. And 350 plus bodies were found. And we're still searching for more remains to this day. Who's working? There's a picture of bones. That is how we found our people. How are you supposed to feel when you find out that on top of a horrible death and undeserved death they went through, they were also thrown in an open pit that was supposed to be used as a septic tank? They were rained on, and garbage was likely dumped on them for 24 years. And no one, those genocidal, especially the ones who claimed they had asked for forgiveness, had no decency to tell us where our people were. I think for any person who lost their loved ones, the hardest wound to heal is not being able to find your loved ones and give them a proper burial. Even though finding their remains was a relief for some of us, it was also very hard to not be able to identify who they were. Few people were able to remember pieces of clothing their family members were wearing. Others were not able to do so. It hurt. There was a picture I was going to share with you. It's a picture. It's a picture of the pants of my little brother. Those pants belong to my little brother. He was the first person I laid my eyes on when I got out the dead bodies. I thought about picking him up, but he was dead. Just a little bit before the genocide started, he had meningitis and he lost his hearing. So he didn't know what was going on. When we lay down, he was one of the children who cried very loudly. So he cried and cried until he stopped. So I kept remembering where he was at. So when I got up, I looked at him. He was dead. I kept thinking about his bad injuries on both knees. That image of his bloody little white pants ripped on both knees has never left my mind. But now I know it was a sign I needed so I can identify him. So even though I could not find or remember what my other family members were wearing, at least I have a small hope that they might have been there with Pete, because they were all laying together the last time I looked at them when we said our goodbyes. May they all rest in peace. We always remember them. Thank you for listening.
what you do is so strong. Because there's probably so many stories that we haven't heard yet. So I know it's difficult, but you are bringing healing for a lot of people. You're bringing more understanding so that people know what happened. And I thank you very much. I think you said so many things that touched me. And we have to hear these stories. We have to know what it's like from the point of view of a survivor. Because we can't speak for the victims. So seeing, and I know a lot of you can relate, seeing, and you mentioned, can you even imagine your brother, your mother, your sibling, your cousins, friends, uncle, the feeling of betrayal, the feeling of helplessness. So it's difficult, but we have to do this. We have to keep remembering every year, and we honor and give so much love to survivors. So once again, thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you to all of you who give the testimonies of their perspective and opinions today. Thank you. So hopefully that also gave you a moment to gather yourselves. I know there's water bottles, but I'm not sure if there's tissues going around, but if you need it, maybe we'll figure something out. But yeah, very powerful day so far. So I want to keep things going and introduce our next panelist. Another great addition to today's agenda, and we'll keep this going as we commemorate and learn and get educated together. So I want to first introduce him before coming on this podium. So I want to introduce the distinguished Professor Drew Kahn. And Drew Kahn is a Sunny Distinguished Service Professor of Theater of Buffalo State University, where he has taught acting, devised theater, and received the President's Award for Excellence in Teaching at SUNY, and directed stage productions and received the Kennedy Center Award for over 30 years. Professor Kahn taught K through 12 populations for 10 years prior to his work in higher education. He is the founding director of the Anne Frank Project, a multi-layered program at Buffalo State University that utilizes the wisdom of Anne Frank as a springboard for the examination of conflict, education, and social justice through the lens of story and performance. He speaks, he presents, and teaches internationally on the intersection of story, conflict management, and social justice, story, conflict management, identity exploration, and community building. Most recently at the United Nations, Rwanda Embassy, U.S. Capitol, and in Rwanda, Kenya, Switzerland, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Toby Ticton Back Award for a Holocaust Education, Community Leader Award, National Federation for Just Communities. Professor Kahn has extensive acting experience in professional theater, Andre DeShield's original cast of Saint Tooth, featured film for Paramount Pictures, Necessary Roughness, as well as multiple television and commercial credits. Professor Kahn's book, Story Building, a practical guide for bringing the power of stories into classrooms and communities, is used by teachers and community leaders all over the world. Professor Kahn's most prized roles are husband to his wife, Maria, and father to his children, Sam and Nate. So I welcome to the stage Professor Kahn.
Around the mesa. I'm humbled to be up here and to be amongst you. And Clarice, thank you for that incredible story. We are in a sacred space when you share your story like that. And please know that that does not fall upon deaf ears. You are teaching lessons. And you are modeling words and your intelligence and your passion give me hope. I want to bring you to Buffalo and build stories together. You have immense hearts. I appreciate you. I bring you greetings from the State University of New York. That's what SUNY is, Buffalo State University, and our president, Juanita Durand, who knows I'm here, was also just speaking yesterday with your ambassador, Matilda Mukatawa, that I made the trek up here. I'm humbled and honored to be here. Sometimes when we share stories like this and this pain, we think that we want to run away from the discomfort, but please rest assured that this discomfort is a model and an important ritual in us understanding, reliving, so we can actually make truth of that phrase, never again. I'm a Jewish American, and last week we commemorated Yom HaShoah, our Day of Remembrance. And the reflections of the things I'm hearing right now are exactly the same. The indiscriminate, wasteful, horrible mutilation of people and murder of people based on truths. We said after the Holocaust, never again. We say today, never again. The lessons that you provide the world are probably natural to you. I'm going to say some things that are really important to the Western idea that you, Rwandans, have taught us, East Africans, that may surprise you because they're normal to you. But during a time such as this in America and the world, particularly the United States, when we are in the midst of great discomfort, I believe that the Rwandan lessons I'm going to share with you are more important than ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing these lessons. It's true that I'm a theater professor, but it's probably more accurate to say that I'm a professor of stories. And stories are remarkable. Stories are remarkable and powerful tools because they remind us of our shared humanity. When I heard the survivor testimony today, it sounded exactly like the survivors from the Holocaust. We are bound by shared story, regardless of how we look, who we pray to, what we eat, and the color of our skin. We are bound by shared humanity. Another important element of stories is that stories bring order to chaos. We are in the midst of a chaotic world, and our hearts are chaotic right now. And it's not a strange reason, it's neuroscience. Why a story like Clarice and her courage and her discipline to share it brings us comfort because it brings us order. It gives us a place to put it. Most importantly for today, stories are vehicles for lessons. They teach us lesson after lesson after lesson, and I'm here to thank you and your miraculous country for 31 strong years of lessons. I can't promise you that all of the United States will listen to these lessons, but I can promise you that at Buffalo State University, 6,000 students know about Rwanda. And our faculty and our staff, we love you and we love your country, and we are with you today, as we are always. In order for stories to become acts of social justice, they must be lifted off the page and activated, intentionally and consistently. Two of those words that will come up, and these are lessons that are extremely important, that we have learned, that I have learned, that my students have learned from you, are the lessons of courage and discipline. The courage to return to this uncomfortable situation, the courage to return to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda and resurface it, not because we want to, but because we must. We must come together and bring together that courage. So indeed, that idea of never again can be true. And the discipline to do it again and again and again. Evolutionary scientists will tell you that we would not be here without stories. Yes, stories can be entertaining, but that's not really why stories were created. Rwanda knows that, and who am I telling? You come from a continent of hundreds and thousands of years of story. Telling Africans that stories are important is like telling fish that water is important. In fact, I find my work about bringing stories into the classrooms far easier in Rwanda than in the United States, for all the reasons you're probably assuming. What were stories to do historically? What was the role? Survival, communication, warnings, again, our shared humanity. Stories were the original social media. Before we were scrolling with our thumbs, the griot were telling stories from village to village, saying, this is how we roll. This is who we are. Once again, stories are vehicles for lessons. In 1994, led by your heroic President Kagame, you didn't, when the genocide was completed, you didn't just say, let's go back and rewrite our story before the genocide. You went pre-colonial. Let's go back to when things were fine and we did okay on our own and we learned our lessons from ourselves. Your homegrown solutions. Ideas of forgiveness, unity, love. You rewrote your national narrative based on themes of forgiveness, unity, love, and structures that exemplify the discipline I'm talking about. Stories, when activated and lifted off the page, as you know to do as Rwandans, and as your country knows to do, and as your leaders know to do, turns them from mere ideas to prescriptions for life. I'll give you an example. Today's story, every time we come to Kwibuka, the story is similar. Remember, unite, renew. Whether you know that or not, know this or not, that is undeniable story structure. Remember the problem. That's where all stories must start. Unite, come together. That's the solution. And renew. The end of every great story, transformation. Remember, unite, renew, problem, solution, transformation. Ideal story structure. What is it? Is it easy to do? What is required? Courage and discipline. Something that is in the very fabric of your country and runs through your veins every day. Your homegrown solutions are also very, very strong, important story structures. The idea of umuganda, that every third Saturday your entire country comes together to clean and improve the country. How wonderful that would be if we had umuganda in North America. Let me be more specific. How wonderful it would be if we had umuganda in the United States. Could we imagine us all coming together and doing what's best for our country, our story? Umuhiku, performance contracts. Boy, the United States would really love that now. To hold our leaders accountable. So the people are in charge, not just a person. You have taught us that. And gachacha. How about everybody in the village decides what's right and what's wrong? It's an enormous task, requiring, again, courage and discipline. Another very important lesson that I bring back to the United States and to my students and to my university from your country is your PVE, your Peace Value Education Initiative. Starting by the teachers in the Kigali Genocide Memorial Center in their Peace School, storytelling as the curriculum and the foundation to make sure that denial does not happen again, you teach the truth. So every child in Rwanda, at every school, understands the truth of 1994 and understands what happens when those steps are followed and how to fight it. It is so successful that the Rwandan parents were hearing this information coming home from their children. And what did they say? How about us? So in recent years, the parent-teacher organizations, the PTAs of Rwanda, have surfaced where the parents come back. I want to know what my child knows. And by the way, children are the answer to make sure that never again happens again. There is nothing that those who deny, those who are on the far right, and those who are angry, and those who are warmongers are afraid of most or more than a second grader armed with empathy and truth. The truth of what happened in 1994, and that incredible heart of a young child to come home and say, Mom, Dad, Grandma, and Grandpa, that is not how we treat each other. That is not what happened in 1994. That is not what we call Tutsi or Hutu. In America, that is not what black people are. That is not who Jewish people are. That is the answer. And we start with college, and we get to high school, junior high, and we get to that second grade, armed with empathy and armed with truth. Children are the messengers. Is that easy? No. It requires courage and discipline. One of my favorite questions that the teachers ask with the Peace Value Education, they don't ask the students always what you know, they ask them how they feel. What do you feel? So moving the question from the brain to the hearts. If we don't engage our young people's hearts, nothing will change. But you know about hearts. I've learned that from my multiple trips to Rwanda. By the way, I've taken 12 delegations, we're on our 13th coming in June, of students to Rwanda. We've taken over 170 students to Rwanda. Why? Because you teach these valuable lessons. I have more. When we do our surveys at the end of the trip each year, we ask our students, what were the most profound, what were the most meaningful experiences? What would you like to do more of? And I think they're going to say, I would like to go to Akagera and do more safari. Or I'd like to have more delicious food somewhere. That's not what they say. The most powerful experiences they talk about are your reconciliation villages. To you, that may seem like that's how we roll in Rwanda. To the Western mind, it is unfathomable. Let me explain this for those of you who don't know. Since forgiveness is a national priority, the Rwandan people asked the Rwandan government, say, we understand this. We understand this idea, this theory of forgiveness, but we need a place to practice it. So the Rwanda government and lots of NGO organizations got together and created reconciliation villages. Let me explain this to you. Perpetrator, the murderers of the genocide, confessed, lived next door to victims. Often, the perpetrator living next door to the victim murdered people in their family. And they don't fight. They meet every morning and every evening, and they share testimony. They share stories. Stories are the currency and the driving force in the reconciliation villages. My students come and ask these questions and cannot believe that this exists. And they also learn that forgiveness is not a switch that is just flipped. Every victim perpetrator that we've spoken to has a different definition for forgiveness. But unanimously what they say is that they are thankful that they have a place to practice it. The reconciliation villages are forgiveness simulators. That's not just smart, that's brilliant. And it's important, and they should be in every city in the United States. The United States would not be facing its current issues if we had reconciliation villages. A place to practice and learn what it means to forgive. Not easy. What is required? Courage and discipline. One of my students said, it's like stories in the reconciliation villages are medicine. Stories as medicine. I loved that. I'd like to share with you elements that we have brought back from our experiences in Rwanda. In 2010, my students met with Hope Azeda, and you may know her in her performing arts company, Masharika. Her students and my students created a play together. We came back to the United States and we toured that play to local schools, literally bringing back the message from those two groups of students. By the way, those two groups of students, the Rwandan 18-year-olds and the United States 18-year-olds, had the same fears, the same needs, the same desires. One of the students said, Professor Khan, we are living the same story. Once again, that's a nightmare to the far right and to the people who want to continue with genocides. That those people from different countries are getting together to say, wait a minute, we are the same. Buffalo, New York, the city that I live in, is the official international sister city of Muhanga in the southern province. So we have had the privilege and honor to train hundreds of Muhanga teachers and tens of thousands of Muhanga students to use story-based learning in the classroom. Stories as the curricular platform. I can tell you that the best students I've ever worked with are Rwandan teachers. Moving from knowledge-based curriculum, your Ministry of Education, to competency-based curriculum was a very smart move. As your president said, what does it matter what Rwandan students know if they don't know what to do with what they know? In that one instance, he has lacked Western education. Because we are still sharing facts and asking students to memorize and calling it education. Kagame said that's not enough, and I agree. So we are the benefactors of good timing as we brought stories into the classroom. One of the many teachers that we have taught, Emmanuel, came up to me and he said, thank you, Professor Khan, for teaching me story-based learning, because now my students know how much I love them. I said, well, why didn't they know that before? Because I was yelling at them from the chalkboard, telling them to memorize. But now we make stories together. Academically and attendance, all has shot up. National Schools of Excellence. Stories matter. My wife will tell you, when I came back from my first trip in 2009 in Rwanda, from Rwanda, the first thing I said to her was, we need to bring Rwanda to the United States. The United States could use a lot of Rwanda. So we built a curriculum, a story-building curriculum that goes like this. My students are in a course with me. We are taking 15 students. This will be our 13th delegation. They've been with me this entire semester as I prepare them for their 2 weeks in Rwanda. We will be there the first 2 weeks of June, our currently meeting with my friend, who's told me he'll be there. So we're still there during the sacred time of Kwibuka. My students, after their 2 weeks of heart stretching, walking through memorials, experiencing reconciliation villages, helping to train the teachers, they come back and they process those intense experiences through the writing of a news story, collectively. And that story that they write, that play, that performance will tour 20, 25 local schools, literally bringing the lessons of Rwanda to the hearts and souls and minds of young Buffalonian children who need to hear it. We're at the tail end of this semester's tour from last year, and the theme of that play is forgiveness is messy, but completely worth doing. Now, I don't know a young person in the world that doesn't need to hear that. Thank you, Rwanda, for helping us with that. Lastly, you have inspired us as we've created a new Holocaust education program called Sophia's Legacy: Holocaust, Genocide, and Conflict Education in the Classroom, bringing the truth to the classroom through stories. Sophia Pfeffer is a Holocaust survivor. She's still alive, and she went to school with Anne Frank. She's in Buffalo. We recorded her story, 5 hours of her testimony, and that's half of the basis for Sophia's Legacy. The other half, Rwanda PVE. I believe, and I say this proudly to you, I believe that we are the only American education curriculum that is importing Rwandan curriculum, not the opposite. I'm not doing it as a favor. We're doing it because it's right. We're doing it because it's best practice. And we're doing it because of the success that you have shown as a nation, as a people, and right down to each individual. So even though this is a difficult day, and my hearts are with you, all of you today, as you reflect on the horrific 100 days of 1994. But I'm also here to help hopefully bring you some hope and some knowledge that we hear you. We are listening to you, we feel you, and we love you. And we will be your partners in story until never again is a reality. Thank you again for the honor to be here today, reminding you that Buffalo State University is with you in heart and mind and soul. We care deeply about you. We love you. In fact, next week, you're all invited to our Kwibuka, Buffalo Kwibuka, which is on the 10th, a week from today at Buffalo State University. Buffalo State University is the second home to our Rwanda Buffalo community. And when my administration forgets that, I remind them. You are more than friends. You are family to us. Murakoze Chani, thank you so much for the lessons that you have shared with us. And I wish you nothing but urukundo, amahoro.
Thank you, Professor Drew Kahn. That was a great speech. Good to know that we have friends at SUNY, Buffalo State University, and it's always nice to see how many pockets of the world, and including America, where we have second homes, allies, friends. So yeah, really good to hear that, and I think the phrase that really stayed in my mind that I wrote down, which was being armed with empathy and truth. I think those are two great things. You have the empathy, which is our heart, kind of, at least that's how it speaks to me, and the truth, our minds. So we're going with our heart and knowledge, And I think that's a theme that's been talked about a lot today of being educated, passing down education, and I think that just made me think of different ways we can do that. And I agree with how to speak to the next generation. I would put myself in that too, and I know I need to feel it as well too. So you've given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure you've given a lot of others to think about as well. So yeah, another great moment today. And I will keep the event going. Really appreciate everybody so far.